Hi, welcome. My name is Tua Rust, and today's class is on the beginning understanding of the Index Universal Life account, which is a insurance policy. So let's get started. I'd like to go into what is your why. In this business, if your family is most important, and then your job is second most important, and your best friends are your next most important, and all of that is more important than this business, then you will never succeed. Not only will you not succeed in this business, you will not succeed in anything in life if it's not as important as your family, your work, and your best friends. Not more important, but at least as important. I mean, it's vying for that time and that energy. So to do that, you need to have a pretty profound why. So why are you here today? Right? Ask yourself. For me, what is my why? I'm here to eradicate poverty. I was put on this planet to do great things. And the only way I can do that is through this company. I have a very, very, very deep why that is as important as my son, my family, as my friends. So, what is your why? Okay, so now think about life insurance. Think of a family member who has passed recently, who paid for the funeral. How did their passing affect the family financially? And so, some of you may have some really intense stories about death and whatnot. And of course, the loss of the person is irreplaceable, but the loss of income is not. And what I've learned in my life is that when a person passes, the financial stress way outweighs the psychological stress of someone passing. Everyone dies. It's awful, but it's going to happen. We kind of are okay with that. But all of a sudden, losing that money, losing the home, all of that stuff, whatever happens, that can really set family back for generations. Someone passing is not going to set someone back generations. It's a loss financially. So think about that in yourself. Have that story. So the next question is, if you had a family friend who has had a heart attack, a stroke, or cancer, and how did that affect the family? The person's retired, but they're getting an income. They don't qualify for Medi-Cal. So if they have a heart attack and it's a $400,000 bill, they've got to come up with 80 grand. How are they going to come up with that money? 401k. Taking money out of 401k, you're going to lose half of your money. Now you can't retire. Now you got to go back to work after having a heart attack. So think about what's happened to folks financially who have had a heart attack, stroke, or cancer. So we have three things now. We have your why, your passing story, and your illness story. Hopefully, everyone at this point has it in their mind the answer to this question. And I want you to write down the answer to this question. My why for pursuing a life insurance business is to, so for me, it would be, is to protect my family, my loved ones, and ultimately my belief in the universe. Whatever it is for you. And when you look at that statement, and you realize that this business opportunity is the only way that we know right now. I mean, if you have a way to make $1 million in 6 months, let me know. But this is the only way we have to create financial independence that we know of. There's other ways, but we may not be aware of them right now. But this is your only chance to do that at this point in your life. So this is how you teach, right? Because teaching isn't about listening. Listening is the lowest level of teaching, listening for content. The second level is understanding the heart. Hopefully now you can understand my heart, and this is getting into what your heart is. But once you can understand where a person's coming from a heart perspective, then you have to ask yourself, where are you in relation to that? How are you doing? And that's what I had you do now. And I wager that my why for pursuing life insurance business is pretty close to your guys's at the end of the day. I think we're all trying to help everyone in this planet because if I'm wealthy and my family isn't, I'm not happy. My family is wealthy, but my close friends aren't, I'm not that happy. If I and my friends, my family are wealthy, but my community is poor, I'm not that happy. If my community is rich, but the world is poor, how can I truly be satisfied? And so I think in the end, all of us are at that level that we can't truly be happy and content and peaceful until the world is. And now what we've created is an intersection of beliefs. My why is now connected to your why. Once you believe that you and your teacher have the same goals, guess what? The learning comes easy because learning is all about trust, has nothing to do with content. We're all geniuses. We can all learn this stuff, but trust is what's needed. Is this why statement enough to compete with family obligations, right? With being a parent? There might be a day or time when you have to get a babysitter, this or that. Like, are you willing to sacrifice some time and energy with your family, your friends, and your work or business in order to make this work for you? Is that statement enough to get you to at least question before hanging out with a friend one night or before staying up late, to watch the movie with your kids, just for right now? Now we can move into true learning. You ready? That was our introduction. Our outline for today is roughly 6 parts. So that's our goal for today and what we will accomplish. So what is an IUL? An IUL is an indexed universal life account. I'm going to start with a simple question. Can you save $10 a day? Of course we can. Do we? No. But all of us should be able to save $10 a day. Well, if you're going to save it, where is it going to go? In the bank. Okay. So $10 a day for 30 days, $300 a month. For a year is $3,600. So you put that money in a bank, then you're going to get interest on that. But you're also going to pay taxes. So after 1 year, you'll have $3,600 plus whatever interest you earned minus taxes. Makes sense. Now, of course, that $3,600 you've already paid taxes on, right? So I'm not worried about the principal. Even in a 401k, you're eventually going to pay taxes on the principal. What I'm worried about is the interest. Notice how you have to pay tax on the interest. So after 10 years, you'll have $36,000 plus interest minus tax. And if, unfortunately, after 10 years, bus hits you, your life ends, your beneficiaries or your loved ones will have that $36,000 plus interest minus taxes. That's not that much. There's a better way to take that $300 a month and give it to your family. And that is by putting it in an insurance policy. So we take that same $300 a month and put it into an insurance policy. Some of that money pays for the premium, maybe about $150, maybe $200, but the other remaining amount goes into a savings account that earns 1 to 15%. The $300 a month is gone, and after 1 year, you'll have put $3,600 into your policy. Once you subtract out the cost of that policy, whatever's left over will grow at 1 to 15%. But you won't pay taxes on that. So after 10 years, you'll have put $36,000 in it, less any cost of insurance, but you'll have gained really good interest and you won't pay any taxes. So however much that adds up to. Now, let's say, unfortunately, your life ends after 10 years. Because you have a $300,000 policy, $300,000 will go to your loved ones, plus that cash value, and there will be zero interest or zero tax on any of that money. So this is a very simple comparison showing you why everyone needs a life insurance policy. Because assuming everyone can save $10 a month, you should never be putting that in the bank. Great. I'd like to end part of it with a concept of the different types of life insurance. So there's only 4 types of life insurance. The 5th is final expenses, which I do sell, but I won't go into. So the cheapest form of life insurance is group, and that's given through a company. If a person is not given a policy, they're given a certificate. Everyone who joins the company largely gets this for maybe a few bucks a month. So why not? I have it. I pay a few bucks a month. I actually am triple indemnified, so I have $150,000 and I'm paying like $10, $12 a month for it. Now I have to die while being employed. Very unlikely. But for $12 a month, it's worth it. What if you want to have a policy that lasts a little longer than your job? Well, a term policy is very cheap as well, and it'll last up until your 60s or 70s. It is not permanent. It is not a true life insurance because you're not guaranteed to get paid out, only if you die for 60s and 70s. 90% of term policies expire, meaning the person outlives them. But it's not bad if you're, let's say, young and you just got a new job, maybe you're married, you have a little kid, and you can't afford a permanent policy, but you need a lot of coverage. The real insurance is permanent insurance, meaning you will pay that premium until you die, but when you die, there will be a death benefit or a face amount that will go to your loved ones. It's a very expensive one. We're talking hundreds of dollars a month. The whole life policy also provides a small 1 to 3% growth savings account. Well, about 30 or so years ago, they created something called the universal life account. It was a variable universal life account. Wasn't that great? Then they came up with the indexed universal life account. So we don't talk about the VULs anymore. We only talk about IULs. So again, it is expensive. We're talking $500 a month is a good policy. It has a death benefit. It is permanent. However, you can get 6 to 10% growth on the money you put in. So that savings account that's growing and you're not paying any taxes on, you're getting 6 to 10%. So in the next class on advanced IULs, we'll go deep into that and show exactly how that works. And there's also something called living benefits, meaning you can choose what kind of rider to add to your policy. You can add a long-term care rider, or you can add a chronic illness and terminal illness rider. We suggest the long-term care rider because our goal is to protect your family from your passing. And so we want to make sure that if and when you pass, that money goes to your family. But if a year before you pass, there's a lot of bills, we want to make sure that the family doesn't suffer. That's what the long-term care rider comes in. The chronic illness and terminal illness is more of a secondary one. Why is that? Well, if you have a heart attack these days, you might still be okay. You can probably still function. It's just when you can't do the long-term care that you need to get some actual help. So we like to make sure everyone has a long-term care rider with their policy. And then as you make more money, you want maybe a second policy, fine. We can add the chronic illness rider and so on. So these are the 4 types of policies. And guess what? When you take your test, you'll need to know what these 4 types of policies are.
Welcome to Simple Financial Solution in ANWO's Way presentation. Today's topic is a simple life insurance concept. Ask yourself, do you know a better way to save money? Because the more money you can save, the wealthier you can become. The more money you can have, the earlier you can retire. Because a true retirement is when you no longer have to worry about money for the rest of your life, not how old you are. Ask yourself, can you save $10 a day? If you can, where would you prefer to save this $10 daily? How do most people save their money? Traditionally, most people will save their money in the bank and earn a small interest. So with a $10 per day saving commitment in 30 days, you will be able to save about $300 per month. Consistently after 1 year, you would have put away $3,600 plus the interest you've earned minus tax. After 10 years, you would have put away $36,000 plus the interest you've earned minus tax. If you pass away at the end of 10 years, your family will only receive the money you have saved in the bank up to date plus interest minus tax. Instead of the traditional bank option, we have a better option by putting that $10 a day in a life insurance box. For example, a 35 to 40-year-old healthy man. With the same $300 a month commitment, he can get an indexed universal life insurance policy with a face amount up to $300,000, including the long-term care rider option that offers a minimum 0.75% interest credit should the market goes negative and up to 15% interest credit cap on the upside when the market performs favorably.
For the indexed universal life insurance policy, the example in this presentation refers to a particular Transamerica Financial Foundation Indexed Universal Life (FFIUL) product with long-term care rider option. As for the long-term care rider option, please refer to the long-term care rider guideline for more information.
What is an indexed universal life insurance policy? It is a form of permanent life insurance policy that offers a cash-valued component along with a death benefit. With the monthly premium payment into the policy, a portion of that is taken out to pay for the cost of insurance. The remaining money is put into a cash value account that earns compounding interest. The money in your cash-valued account can earn interest based on a stock market index chosen by your insurer, such as the S&P 500 or the Global Index. What is an indexed universal life insurance policy with a long-term care rider option? When you are impaired in 2 out of the following 6 daily activities: bathing, dressing, transferring, eating, toileting, and continence, you can file a long-term care claim on your policy. You can qualify to receive your long-term care benefits after your claim is approved by the insurer. So with $300 a month commitment putting in this type of life insurance policy, after 1 year, you would have put away the same $3,600 minus the cost of insurance plus the indexed interest earned in the cash value account, and there's no tax. After 10 years, you would have put away the same $36,000 minus the cost of insurance plus the indexed interest earned in the account, and there's no tax. If you pass away at the end of 10 years, your family will receive at least this $300,000 policy face amount plus all the money you have saved in the cash value account plus all the compound indexed interest in the account in the last 10 years and pay $0 income tax. But if you are impaired in 2 out of the 6 daily activities anytime during the policy is in force, you can qualify to receive up to 2% of your policy death benefits monthly. Even after your policy's death benefit amount is exhausted, your beneficiary will still receive $10,000 in final payment after your death and pay $0 income tax. Let's compare these two options. Assuming with the same amount of money in the same amount of time period with the same scenario playing out. If you can save $10 a day on a daily basis, where would you prefer to put it? In a bank account? Or in a life insurance policy?
Between the bank and life insurance. If you choose life insurance, congratulations, you've made the right choice.
In this presentation and in that video, you've seen Transamerica, the word Transamerica mentioned. Well, pretty much any policy that sells an IUL is going to be fine. Whether it's Nationwide, National Life, Transamerica, New York Life, all of the IULs are roughly the same. They're all going to cost about the same. They're all going to have the same floor and ceiling. By and large, it doesn't matter as long as it's a good company, you're fine. Our company that we happen to use right now we can sell many different companies, but the one we're having everyone use is Transamerica. That's that little pointy tower in San Francisco you might have heard of. It was created by Amedeo Giannini, who in the 1906 fires and earthquake, all of the banks melted and no one could get their money out of the banks. But for some reason, he was on North Beach, his banks didn't melt. And so he was able to pull money out, and he literally handed money out on the streets of San Francisco with just a handshake in order to make sure that San Francisco didn't die financially. So that's our social justice roots in Transamerica. Transamerica is a 100-year-old company. It's $1 billion company, very successful. It's gone through 2008. It's gone through the 2000 crisis. It's gone through the Iran-Contra war. It's gone through Korea War. It's gone through World War II, right? It's gone through World War One. Never died. Can Vanguard say that? Can wherever you've put your 401k say that it's been around for 100 years? Answer is no. Fidelity? Nothing. No 401k company can say that. Only insurance companies can. Where's your money right now? But Transamerica, it has a daddy as well, and that is Aegon. Aegon is the largest insurance company in the planet, or at least one of the largest. $1 trillion. At one point, 1 out of 4 Europeans had Aegon. They're a 250-year-old company worth so much, and they own all of this. They not only own Transamerica, but they own all those other buildings as well, as you can see there. If Transamerica needs a little help, guess what? They've got the most help you can get. And I share that because that's your policy. That's the policy that we're giving people. That's the policy that you will be using to ensure your family and your friends. You think that can stand the test of time? Absolutely. So we're a solid company. Okay, so that's a little bit on the introduction, what an IUL is and what Transamerica is. So now let us get into the real nuts and bolts. There are 3 aspects of money that we need to teach. The first is how money grows, which is symbolized by this concept, the rule of 72, and the law of compounding interest. The second is where do you put your money to get that kind of growth? And then the third is how is your money taxed? So those are the 3 hidden rules of finance that we will teach you right now. So the rule of 72 was actually invented by Einstein, who said that the most powerful law in the universe is that of compounding interest. In our company, I've been investing for many years, and I would love to share with you how to really invest and make a lot of money. You can make hundreds of % a year without much difficulty. But it does take a few $100,000 to have that. How are you going to get a few $100,000, right? We have paths that we haven't even begun to tell you about. And this is just the beginning of it. I'm so excited. I just can't wait. There's just certain things we can't share with you until we can feel like we could trust you a little bit. We could talk about things. It's not like we're trying to be manipulative, but there's so many beautiful things that you can do once you have some money and once you have some knowledge. And we're going to all do that together. But first, let's get back to this. So the rule of 72 simply states you take 72 and you divide it by the interest rate, and that tells you how long it's going to take for your money to double. So you have $10,000. Where are you going to put it? In the bank. Well, what kind of interest is the bank going to get, right? Maybe 1%. So 72 divided by 1. If you're a 29-year-old person, you put 10 grand in. Congratulations, at 101, you'll have 20 grand. Now, these days, you might be able to get 4%. So 72 divided by 4 will double your money every 18 years. So at 29, you put in 10,000. At 47, you put in 20. And at 65, when you retire, can you retire with 40 grand? No. But remember, you put that money in the bank. So did the bank take that 10,000, put it in a box, wrap a bow around it, let it sit and get dust in the corner? No. They took your money and invested it. They used your money to get 6 and 12% interest. So your money for them doubles every 72 divided by 12 or 6 years. So at 29, your money is 10,000. At 35, it becomes 20. At 40 is 40,000. At 47, it's $80,000. Your money is doubled, but for them, it's gone up by 8 times. Doesn't stop. At 53, it becomes 160,000. At 59, 320. And at 65, the bank's happy to give you $40,000 because they walk away with $600,000 of your money. Is that fair? No, it's business. Now, the truth is the banks are earning way more than 12% because they're able to leverage it by 30 times. So they're making hand over fist. And yet, banks have $0 cash on hand. Banks are so pathetic that they have to be insured just to survive. You see that little sticker on a bank that says FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. It's an insurance company that's insuring your bank when the system goes down. So where would you want to put your money? In the bank or where the bank puts its money? An insurance company. So the moral of the story here isn't to poo-poo banks, although that's fun. The moral of the story is be on the right side of the interest, right? So if you're not earning 6 to 12%, you're not retiring. You're not going to ever be able to stop working. Knowing that, how do we get 6 to 12%? Well, how does money grow? Money can grow in 3 ways. Fixed, which kind of looks like a flat line, and that's what happens where your money goes to die. Or you can put it into a variable account like a 401k, which kind of looks like a EKG monitor having a heart attack, and that's what you do for those of you guys who have gone through 2001. But then there's this indexed account that only ever goes up, never goes down. So just looking at this, let's take a poll to see who's awake. Which way would you want to invest your money? Fixed, variable, or indexed? The answer is indexed. So how? Well, what insurance company has realized is that even though the market goes up and down like this, over 50 years, it goes up. Insurance companies have been around for 100 years. They can wait 50 years for your money to grow, right? They don't need it to grow tomorrow. Magellan, Vanguard, all of these companies do. They have quarterly statements they've got to worry about. Insurance companies, they don't care about quarterly. They can guarantee returns on par with the S&P 500. They don't take your money and put it in the S&P. They give it to people kind of like me, mathematician whizzes, and they trade options all day. And they make millions of dollars off of just 1% of your money. That's what insurance companies do. But the benchmark is the S&P. So if you're a mathematician hired by an insurance company, you better outperform the S&P, otherwise you're fired. It's not that hard. So they can guarantee that they'll outperform the S&P. When the S&P goes up, your account goes up. But when the S&P has a bad year, we still give you all your money back. We do not take any money out. And sometimes, like right now, there's even a 0.75 floor, which means even when the S&P drops 20%, you'll still make 0.75% that year. When the S&P goes up, your account goes up, but it doesn't wait for it to even. So if the S&P goes up and your account goes up, and the S&P falls and your account stays the same, then the S&P goes up again, your account goes up. Then the S&P falls, your account stays the same, the S&P goes up, your account goes up. So you can actually outperform the S&P, but there is a cap. So if it goes up 5 or 10%, no problem. But if it goes up 15, 20, 30%, it caps out. And the cap changes. At some point in 2003 or 4 or 5, it was almost 15%. Around 2009, it was about 13.65% is when I remember doing that. Now it's around 12% because the market isn't doing very well. But whatever that cap is, if the S&P exceeds that, we just pay the maximum. So it has a floor and a ceiling. We'll go into much more depth on how that all works in the advanced class, but that's it. It mirrors the S&P 500, but it's not in the stock market. So therefore, we can do short sales, we can buy countries, we can do whatever we want with that money. It's not necessarily in the stock market. Unlike your 401k, your 529s, your Roth IRAs, which are all beholden to the US stock market, which, by the way, if you look at it since 1902 when it started, the stock market only goes up 51% of the time. So take a look. From 1902 to 1928, if you put your money in the stock market, you earn $0. All the way through World War I and World War II. If you put your money in the stock market, $0. If you put your money anytime between 1999 and 2009, $0. Zero. You would have made no money. And yet that's where people put their money. We're doing it all wrong. So let's keep going. Okay, we talked about how money grows, but what about taxing? How is money taxed? Well, remember, we talked about the principal is always taxed no matter what. Even in your 401k, you defer it, you still have to pay taxes on the principal at some point. So we're not talking about taxes on the principal, we're talking about taxes on the interest earned. So would you rather have the interest taxed now, later, or never? So imagine never paying interest. Now, let's flip it the other way. Let's say you have like credit card debt at 18%, right? How much interest would you earn on that, right? Imagine your home. What's your home loan? Do you realize you'll be paying 2 to 3 times the value of your home in interest? If everyone's paying taxes anyways on the principal, it's the interest that is most critical. And only municipal bonds, Roth IRAs, executive bonus plans can offer tax-free savings. But munis, you might not get a great rate on. Roth IRAs have a lot of rules, 59.5 rule, it's in the stock market, all of that. Executive bonus plans, you got to be an executive. But in an IUL, the cash accumulation is tax-free, and that is huge. Let's say you had $1, and every year you're getting 100% interest on that, 100% return. So next year it's $2, next year is $4. What will it be worth in 20 years? Over $1 million. Not bad, right? That's why we want 100% returns. Well, what if you just pay some taxes on that? So you just pay 30% tax, let's say. $1 becomes $2, pay 30% tax, that's 60 cents, so now you're at $1.40. $1.40 grows, doubles, becomes $2.80, you pay 30% tax on that. And then it doubles, and we do it again and again and again. So it still doubles every year, it's just you're paying 30% on taxes. Well, now, what does $1 become after 20 years? $28,000. You're losing over $1 million. How much money are people losing in their retirement? So my friends, we have now reviewed basically what Transamerica is in the IUL, and we've reviewed the 3 hidden rules of finance, the rule of 72, or the law of compounding interest, how money grows, and how money is taxed. So now I'd like to take it a little personal, and I'd like you guys to think about how much life insurance does a person need? So that's a difficult question, but actually it's not too difficult because life insurance only indemnifies against financial loss. So usually if a person dies suddenly, they are earning an income. You simply multiply that income times 10, and that is how much insurance the person needs. The reason being, if let's say you make $100,000 a year and you pass and you get $1 million, I can take that $1 million, put it in an annuity, and get maybe 6 or 7% interest, right? And then the family will earn 60 or 70,000 a year. That's not the 100,000, but remember the person earning the 100,000 had to spend some of that money on themselves. And sadly, since they're no longer there, that money isn't needed. So 60 or 70,000 is basically what a person provides their family if they're really earning 100,000, if they're no longer there. So a simple rule of thumb is times 10. Well, since most people are making 100,000 or so, you can estimate that most people need $1 million of coverage. How many of you guys have $1 million of permanent life insurance? Right. And of course, the answer is no one. But why not? Right? Isn't life insurance important? Right? Isn't your family important? Right? If you die tomorrow, how can you live with that? Right? We all want it. We all need it, and yet we can't afford it. So this is where it gets a little bit fun because since you're part of our company, we will support you in having a policy for yourself. Now, it probably won't be $1 million, but it'll be a $500 a month policy. We're not paying for your policy. We're not a third party that's paying for your policy. We are not the owner of your policy. You, as ANWO team members, have the Cadillac of all policies now. So you guys who have made policies, is $500 a good amount? Absolutely, right? $500 policy is awesome. That's $1 million of coverage for a 20-year-old. It's a $500,000 coverage for 30 years old, right? And it is coverage for someone in their 40s or 50s. So it's a great policy. And this is the best IUL out there. Not that, I mean, there are other IULs that are just as good, but it is the highest level of IUL that we can provide. It's very low premium, very high floor and ceiling with a strong, strong, strong company. There is of course, the permanent death benefit associated with the policy, but you will also have the long-term care rider option unless you wanted the chronic illness. And with that $500 a month, only about $200 to $300 of it is used to pay for the policy. The other $300 is going to accumulate cash. And so you'll have $2,000 or $3,000 in your account by the end of the year. The whole point is, if you're going to join us, of course, you need to be insured. So in order to do that, we need some information from you. This information is largely if like you were in an insurance situation, you were trying to do a policy and you filled out a paper form. This is that as well. But when you write, the ink spills, there's sloppy handwriting. So we've created a Google form for this. Please now fill it all out. It is going to ask for a bank number, a routing number. Of course, we're not going to do anything. We're not even going to submit the policy because we don't know if it's still a good fit. It'll also ask for your doctor, things like that. So I want you to look over that now, and I want you to spend the next 10, 15, 20 minutes or whatever filling it out. And at this point, we need to make sure that we can insure you. Part of the requirement for joining us is you need to bring us one policy, right? We would like it to be on you, but if you have diabetes, if you're severely overweight, if you have any kind of a record, if you're taking any kind of different medication for thyroid or diabetes or anything like that, if there's anything that's off with your health, then we can't insure you right now. It's not to say that you're uninsurable, but we need to be fast. Who has diabetes or someone, it's going to take time. We don't want to spend that time right now. If you do have some health issues, I'm sorry, we absolutely will figure out a way to cover you, and we can even try a policy for you, but you need to bring us a healthy person. Maybe that's your partner. Maybe it's your children. If you are more unhealthy, if you have some issues or so, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude or anything, but I don't want you to fill all this out and then, it doesn't work. We cannot move forward with you until that piece of the puzzle is figured out. Look at it as your first foray as an insurance agent, but it should be you or your partner or your kids. 401k has some interesting rules. The first is called the 59.5 rule. It's not really a rule, it's actually an age. And what it says is that if you need to pull your money out for an emergency, for any situation or anything before 59.5, you've got to pay a penalty. Now, on top of that, you probably have an income, right? And it might be a sizable income. So the way taxes work is when you add taxable income on top of income, that income is at a very high tax bracket, right? So if you're earning 100,000 or so or more a year and you add another 50,000 for our emergency, you're going to be paying huge amounts of taxes, upwards of 37% federal, 12% if you're in California, and of course the 10% penalty. So you can lose up to 59%. And so if you have an emergency, you got to pull out almost double of what you have in your 401k because you're going to lose everything else in penalties and taxes. Okay, so that's not the point of the 401k. The point is to not have you take it out before 59 and a half. Well, okay, let's say you never want to take it out because you're going to have to pay that tax no matter what at some point, just maybe not the penalty, right? So you say, no, I'm just going to leave it to my children. Well, there enters the 70 and a half rule. If you don't pull that money out and pay these crazy taxes before you're 70 and a half, a government will literally take over your 401k and start giving you money each month, but they're going to take half for themselves. It's called required minimum distribution. You're going to lose 50% right away. So of course, we don't want that either. So they're trying to get you to get this money out of your 401k between the ages of 59 and a half and 70 and a half. But let's say you pass, right? There's still inheritance tax. Now, yes, inheritance tax has like a $13 million initial amount or grace, meaning the first 13 million you give to someone, your family, it's not taxed. So right now, maybe we don't have to worry about inheritance tax. But if you do have a couple of properties or whatnot, and you are worth that amount, then yes, you will have to pay inheritance tax, which can be up to 50 to 70%. Clearly, they don't want that to have happen. Instead, they want you to pull your money out in your 60s. Well, what didn't you pay on your 401k? You didn't pay taxes, right? Right now, you can write off your house, you can write off your children, you can write off your education, you can write off a business. But when you retire, your house is paid off or nearby, you're not going to get any write-offs. Your children are grown up, you're not doing any education, and you're retired. You're not running your business. You have no taxable write-offs when you retire. Right now, if you were to pay your taxes, you would pay effectively a minimum amount, not in total, but the minimum percent of taxes, if you will, because you can write off so much. When you retire, you're going to pay the maximum amount of taxes because you have nothing to write off. It's almost like it was done on purpose, right? So when you look at all of these issues, who benefits from the 401k? The individual or the corporation? What you ought to understand is the 401k was created in opposition to the pensions. Pensions were created by people, unions, for employees, and all the money stayed within employees. Companies didn't like that, right? So the companies and legislature created the tax code 401A, B, C, all the way up to K, and made it look like this is the new retirement way. Have control of your retirement and all that. Do you know that you don't even own your own 401k? If the US ever gets into a disaster like it did in 1929, they can take everyone's 401k. Check it out in the tax code. You do not own your 401k. In a time of crisis, the United States government can take and seize everyone's 401k. Did you know that? Furthermore, you know that the 401k is in the stock market. So what do you think happened in 2008? People's 401ks are halving, right? But then companies go out of business. And if a company matches you, do you ever wonder why a company matches you with a 401k? Because they get the tax write-off for doing that. And on top of it, it's still considered their asset, which means all the money they're giving you, they can still count in the books as their own assets. And what can you do with an asset? You can leverage it. So you think they're giving you money. Really, they're just storing a bunch of assets and then using those assets to leverage even more money to get even more loans. What happens if that company goes out of business, like happened in 2008? All of that matching goes to the debtors first. Very easy to get a hold of an employee's 401k. And so what happened to my good friend, her sister had 900,000. 2008 happened. She lost half of it. The company went under. She lost another half. She had about 200,000. She pulled it out. She paid 50% in taxes. She walked away with $90,000 from a $900,000 retirement. It happened left and right. Some of you guys are too young to know this or remember this. But yes, that happened in 2008. It happened in 2000, 2001. right? Every 15, 20 years, this happens. 401ks are not for the benefit of the individual. So what is? Well, an index universal life account. That is tax code 7702. So simply put, you put in taxed money, right? Unqualified money is what it's called in finance. You put in taxed money, but that money grows tax-free. You can pull it out tax-free. And when you die, it goes to your loved ones tax-free. So let's understand what that means. Let's look at emergencies. Now, if you have an emergency, you can pull that money out anytime. Well, it takes a couple years to get it a little bit vested in there, but within 2 years, you can pull out money tax-free, pay for whatever you want. No penalty, no taxes. What about healthcare? If you have zero taxable income, you're considered low income because low income means low taxable income. So now you're eligible for Medicaid. So 100% of your health bills are paid for now because you have no taxable income. What about college? You're poor. You can get your child all the loans and grants you want. You have zero taxable income. Now, you can still pull money out of your IUL and give it to your child. Still, it's not taxable. It's been around for over 100 years. There's a reason why the wealthy all have these policies. What about retirement? Well, now we're going to get into exactly how the IUL works. So the IUL savings account, right, the money that goes in the savings account mirrors the S&P 500. So the S&P 500 is basically a conglomerate of the largest 500 companies. It changes over time as different companies grow and fall. But in a way, it's kind of like a pulse of the market. It's the best thing we have to understand how the US is doing, basically. All right. This is the return of the S&P over the last 35 years. So you can see that in 2010, the S&P returned 12.78%. And this is verifiable, right? You can look at what the S&P was on January 1st of 2010 and what it was on December 31st, 2010. And you basically can find the percent. Very easy, right? That's what's so nice about these policies. It's not some hidden thing. Where's the money? How did it get moved? Isn't this? You ever look at a 401k statement? You have no idea where all this money is going or anything. Here, it's very easy. We know exactly how much money you'll make each year. 2011, there was $0, right? And so on. Now, over 35 years, the S&P 500 has averaged 10%. Not bad, right? These last 10 years have been great. You know what the S&P averaged between 2000 and 2009? 0%. So had you invested any money between 2001 and 2009, you would have made zero money. But I've analyzed this all the way back to 1902. From 1902 to 1928, $0 was made in the market. Any money you would have put in would have earned zero interest. For 1 year, it went up 400% and then plopped back down with the crash, right? And then for the next 20 or 30 years, zero interest. Had you invested any money, you would have made nothing, right? Then it went up, then nothing for 10, 15, 20 years. Then it goes up, then nothing for 10 or 20 years. People don't know that because people aren't alive long enough to understand this. In 2000, the S&P was at 1,500. What was it in 2009? 1,500, right? $0. Had you invested any money in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, you would have made zero. You would have made dividends. You would have made zero money, right? And this goes back further and further. So yes, right now it looks all right. But look at our returns. This is assuming a 12% cap and a 0% floor. I should have had a 0.75% floor. But these are the returns, whether you look at 35 years, 30 years, 25 years, 20 years, 15 years, all the way down the line. We are stable as a rock. Okay? 7 to 8%. And even if the cap goes up to 13 or 14%, it's around 7 to 8%. That's about what we average. What's important is look at what happened in 2022 when everyone else's income or 401k dropped 20%, yours didn't. So there's something to be said about stress, right? It's nice to have a lot of money, but most people can't stand watching $1 million drop 200,000. They panic, right? Here, you don't have to. This is a stress-free place. And you might have even heard of a person called Warren Buffett and LeBron James. Well, Warren talks about LeBron James and says, hey, look, LeBron James is a really, really acute business person, right? He's now a billionaire. This quote was maybe 10 years ago. And he's worth a lot of money. As acute a business person as he is, and as the amount of wealth he is, I still recommend an indexed account. So this is the richest person on the planet telling another very rich person on the planet that this account is the best for him. Take that as you will. All right, so how does this money actually grow? Well, let's say it's July 26, 2024. The S&P happens to be 5,459 points. I just kind of made that up. So $500 is put into your account, right? Now we're assuming all 500 in here, right? Which isn't really the case, because if you have a $500 policy, only 300 or 400, whatever it is going to go in there. But for argument's sake, let's just put 500 to that account. So it basically goes into a vault. And so when you put that money in your account and you look at your policy, you'll see that you have zero money in your account, even though you just put $500 in there. That's because it's in a vault. Okay. That vault will last a whole year. And then the next year, July 26, 2025, the vault will open up. And we will look and see what the S&P is. Now, in this example, the S&P went up 500 points, which is roughly 10%. So when the vault opens, that $500 pops out along with 10% or $50. So a year from now, you will have earned 10%. Okay, but what happens next month? Same thing. So let's say next month, the S&P has shot up to 5,700. Fine, goes in a vault. Following year, it opens up. Let's say it was 5,950. And what is that? That's about 5%. So great, $525 comes out. Let's say it goes to 5,600 in September, but there was a dip in 25 in September, and the S&P went down. The vault opens up, and guess what? That $500 pops out plus, in this case, 0.75%, or an additional $3.50. Every month after that first year of putting money in, assuming you keep putting $500, it'll be like you're earning that interest immediately. So you can imagine in July 26, 2025, I put in another 500, but 550 comes out. In August, I put in 500, 525 comes out. Right? September, I put in 500, $503.50 comes out. So if you keep putting in the same amount of money, you'll kind of just see that. It's like, whoa, I just made that immediately. No, it's what you made last year. But that's how it works. You might have an up month, you might have a down month, but if you kind of look at how the stock market moves, the market doesn't drop for a whole year. It drops in like 1 month or 1 week, and then it pops back up. So even in 2008, when the average market lost for the whole year, your account didn't stay at zero that whole year. That 1 month it dropped, sure. But then after that, who knows, right? And what's really cool is the following year, you would have made bank. When everyone else is trying to recover and get back to normal, you're already making money on the growth that the S&P has had. So that's, in a nutshell, how the IUL works. That's essentially how your retirement is going to get funded. And so if you're growing at 7% a year and you're putting in money, you can kind of estimate how much money you'll have. Now, remember, this is a tax-free retirement, right? So $100,000 income after taxes is maybe $70,000. So all you need is $70,000 from an IUL. But because you have an IUL, you don't have to pay Medicare. You don't have to pay all these other things. How much is that worth? You don't need a $100,000 IUL in order to have a $100,000 lifestyle. To maintain that $100,000 a year lifestyle, probably $50,000 is all you truly need because of all the savings you can have due to the tax advantages you have of having no income. What about investments? Well, you can unlock your account. So let's say you're stuffing money in, right? You're making money with us. You're shoving $20,000, $30,000 into these accounts each year. And after 5-10 years, you've amassed $300,000 or $400,000, because of interest and all that. And you want to buy a house. Take your money out, tax-free. Buy that house. Maybe take out $300,000, do a hard money loan on your friend, right? And then they'll pay you 10%. Now, of course, you're going to pay taxes because you pulled the money out. But the $300,000 you pulled out, you don't pay taxes. And guess what? Then you can shove it all back in. So you can unlock it. So for realtors who like to, buy a bunch of houses and then they kind of hold the money. Well, where does a realtor put their money for 5 or 6 years while they're waiting for the market to get right. In IUL, they can earn interest on that because they know they can pull that right back out in 5 or 6 years tax-free, buy whatever homes they want, make their money, pay their taxes, shove it back into the IUL, and then repeat. What about inheritance? If we have a $500 policy, let's assume 250 of it goes into a $500,000 life insurance policy. The other $300 goes into that index savings account that goes up and never goes down. Fair enough. Worst case scenario, you get hit by a car next day. Well, the life insurance tax properties wrap around the $300 in a savings account, like a candy wrapper protecting candy from getting dirty. And your beneficiary walks away with $500,300 tax-free. For $500, your beneficiary got all that. Nothing better. There's no better investment. Now, of course, you have to die for that to happen. That's not what we want. So let's say you live till a ripe old age of 120 and you've done good. You've lived off of your savings, but you haven't used your savings. So you still have $500,000 in your account when you pass. Well, again, the life insurance wraps around that 500,000, and now your beneficiary walks away with $1 million tax free. So looking at all these positive qualities, who benefits from the IUL? The corporation or the individual? Right. You got to understand, in 1929, when the stock market crashed, several things happened. The Fed was formed, right? They now said they removed gold from currency. They said we're going to make paper currency, and then we're going to print paper. So the Fed not only bailed out the US and kind of owns the US, but they're also printed any money that they need. You know what else they did? They instituted 91% tax rate for the wealthy for 6 years. Well, the wealthy revolted. They said, this is crazy. You don't understand. Taxes didn't exist. Annual taxes didn't exist pre-Fed, right? If the government needed something, they would tax every once in a while. Maybe a city or a state would tax, but the federal government taxing in the 1800s? No way, right? Remember, we were trying to get rid of tithing to the English, right? So the wealthy were like, no, like, okay, fine. We'll pay taxes once, but never again. And they created tax code 7702 to allow for that. When we look at this, which one serves us, right? The 401k or the IUL? So you can see now this isn't a presentation to convince everyone to drop their 401ks, although I do presentations that do this. This is to just give everyone a concept of what the IUL is in relation to a 401k and a little bit of education around the 401k. In my opinion, you should drop all contribution to 401k, matched or not. It is the worst place to put your money. That's my opinion. But if you want to put it there, that's fine. It'd be better financially for you to put it in the IUL, in my opinion. Now, interestingly, I can say that because I'm not Series 65 certified. If I am, like your financial advisor, they can't advise you. Isn't that crazy? A financial advisor can't advise you. All they can do is give you options, and then you have to choose. But I'll tell you this, when you look at your 401k, take a look and see how many different indexes you're in. The average person is in 5 or 6 different types of indexed accounts within their 401k. And they only have a few $100,000. You ever wonder why? It's because financial advisors make a profit every time they move your money around, and they make a substantial profit. You're talking 10,000 or more, five figures to move a couple $100,000 around. So again, why is someone a financial advisor? Why all of this is interesting, right? All I'm sharing is knowledge, but you are trying to become the fiduciary for yourself, your family, and your community, and you need to understand that the 401k, in my opinion, is a predatory device. It is not something that should ever be used or talked about. It's putting all your money in a very, very high risk place. There's tons of penalties. It serves not the individual, but it does pay commissions very well to financial advisors, and it helps companies. that is it. It's a little bit of a downer for this presentation, but the good news is we offer a solution, right? So people who have been putting 401k money in 401ks all these years can now instead put that money into an IUL and really see this grow and perhaps be able to retire with a tax-free income and really move on with life. That's the exciting aspect. And at this point, you have more knowledge than most people about the IUL and even the 401k. But I do want you to understand the issues with the 401k and exactly how an IUL can mitigate that. Not that we're trying to convince people, but this is knowledge that you should have.